Another video where I start yapping about Devil May Cry. Do you guys know this is my favorite franchise? Well, guess what? It's not, actually. I'm more of a Sonic fan, to be honest, but DMC is still up there. It's still up there with, one of my favorite franchises, up there with, like, the DC Universe, Final Fantasy, Resident Evil, Dragon Ball. I love all those things. But I've been in love with DMC for the better half of nearly 4 years, coming up on a solid 4 years from 2022, and I've been addicted to that franchise ever since then. And in that time, I've checked out nearly everything the franchise has had to offer. I've checked out the games, the novels, the mangas, as well as the two animes that we currently have. Kind of crazy to think that we never got a CG film from Devil May Cry on the level of Resident Evil, let alone a movie in general. Like, can you imagine like a Devil May Cry movie that's like a CG or an anime type of movie? That'd be pretty sick in my opinion. I hope we get one of those one day because I definitely think Devil May Cry does fit the style of an action movie. It'd be pretty cool to see that kind of stuff play out in like, I don't know, a movie that's like an hour and a half long or some shit. That'd be pretty cool. But let's get to the main topic of this video that we're all here for. Devil May Cry 1 needs a remake. Now I know this is a discussion that's already been up in the air for a while, probably even like all the way back when the special edition for Devil May Cry 5 came out. There were probably people saying like, "Oh, DMC1 could use like a remaster or a remake or some shit." And I wanted to cover some points and ideas about what the game could be, since I think DMC1 having a remake is a good way to bring the franchise back on its feet, and probably the best way. Well, it never fell off recently, but in terms of it having more fans and whatnot, and kind of giving people more of an idea of what DMC is, aside from just the recent content like the Netflix anime 5 and 3 also being ridiculously popular, but for good reason. Anyways, let's get started, shall we? But before we begin, like, subscribe, and comment what you would like to see in a DMC1 remake, or if you just want a DMC sequel like DMC6, or hell, even like a Sparta prequel or something like that. Because I know that's been something floating around, and I can't really blame anyone. But anyways, let's just get right into it. So off the bat, let's address the elephant in the room. The biggest thing a lot of people want from a DMC1 remake is for the atmosphere to remain the same. The gothic vibes, the eerie vibe, the scary OST, and the same level design. To that, I say I agree to an extent. I do want most of these aside from the level design. DMC1 could definitely benefit from making its areas bigger in a remake, especially considering how advanced DMC has gotten in terms of its combat lately. Having combat in a cramped space would be kind of weird, I feel, especially with like such a fixed camera angle where you can't really adjust or move it the way you would like to. So, I definitely do think the mansion could be expanded a bit. Maybe they make it a bit bigger or whatever. However, while I do want to assume they'll keep the same vibes, we can't be too certain this will be their definitive choice, namely because the original director was different, that being Hideki Kamiya. And while I definitely do think they can still like keep and retain some of those ideas that we had gotten, I wouldn't be surprised if they went a different direction due to him not being there and Dante drastically changing throughout the games. I don't think he'll be more jokey, but you do have to remember DMC1 was built off of the ideas of Resident Evil, so certain stuff changed. Namely the one about Dante being scared of demons despite every game from 3 and on saying otherwise, because the guy doesn't really look scared if he's willing to, shave. And another thing to address about the atmosphere is the remake problem, as some have called it. The endless and honestly stupid debates about how, oh, this game changed the aesthetics of the original, therefore it's a bad game. Namely Demon Souls, Resident Evil 4, and Silent Hill 2. While I do hate this debate that's been going on simply because, people should be allowed to enjoy what they want, and while, yes, you don't have to like the remake as much as you do the OG, I just think it's a little disingenuous to say a remake is bad just because it doesn't look the same in terms of certain aesthetics or art style, quote unquote, despite games back then always trying to achieve a sense of realism. But anyways, I digress. I do hate this discussion, but I understand it to a certain like degree, and I understand where people are coming from on some games, some like Demon Souls. DMC1 is a game where I think it should keep the aesthetics and ideas, particularly because it fits with the idea of what was even going on in the story. The idea was that Dante was experienced, and yeah, he knew what he was doing, which could be kind of like a surrogate way for the players like us. We know how Devil May Cry is, we know how it works, but like, we don't know what we're getting into. Like, yeah, DMC1 experienced fans might know and all that, but the idea was like, it was like, yo, don't really know a whole lot of what we're going into. Like, what's this mansion about? What's Mundus doing? You know, who's this Trish lady? You know, stuff like that. There's like no ideas and stuff that they can like go with and kind of build off of the basis of both the players and just the game in general for how the aesthetics can be done. Because it works pretty well with the first game, so you know, keeping that for the remake would be pretty good in my opinion. You know, it was stuff like, yo, like all we knew was Mundus was involved. This chick looks like Dante's mom, but it was like, you know, there was more to the story than just that. And you would unravel that by exploring. And I liked that idea. It was pretty cool. It was a game built on mystery and the unknown vibe purely because of the idea. I'd even say it was also built on the Uncanny Valley side of things, considering that Dante goes through a couple of books and manuals and stuff that mention that, you know, there were people here. So I think that's also kind of cool. Do I think the game should be super scary or super, you know, like, ooh, spooky? I mean, I don't think it has to be, but I definitely do think that it should keep some of these aspects if it wants to stay loyal to the original. But if they don't want to go beat for beat and, you know, change up some things to fit the modern narrative of what DMC has been ever since the third game, honestly, I don't mind it. That's perfectly fine. The next thing I'd like to address is the obvious one. This is one that everyone brings up: the combat. We all know DMC1 probably has the simplest combat of every game. After all, it does have, you know, very basic stuff. You know, you just do slash, slash, million stab. You launch them in the air, you slam back down, you can jump off of them and shoot and all that. But aside from that, you know, the combat is kind of like very dry, bare bones, not much really going on. And that's not to say that it's a unenjoyable experience or that, you know, the gameplay of DMC1 is inherently bad, because I think it's pretty good. It's just stacked up to the modern games where the games got much more complex in terms of how they wanted to direct their combat and all that. You know, I think it definitely does need to make a couple of improvements and whatnot, especially considering that the latter games kind of had the previous games to improve upon, like DMC4 improving upon 3 and 5 improving upon 4. I think DMC1 could improve upon the stuff in 5 and go forward, you know? I don't want to say necessarily an overhaul, but honestly, I can't really see how else they could do that. I definitely do want to see them throw in style switching and weapon swapping that happens similar to 5, where you can make presets and loadouts for the sake of creativity and style. That kind of stuff added to DMC5 and made it more of like a really fun game, because it was like, hey, like, you get to have your own unique style and your own weapon selections and stuff, so you can come up with your own crazy ass combos and stuff, which is kind of what DMC always encouraged since the third game, and I really enjoy that, and I want the DMC1 remake to uphold something like that. Now, I can't say what abilities the weapons should have, since Capcom can honestly make up whatever the hell they want based on the original ideas and fully flesh them out, but I do definitely think Devil Trigger needs at least some new gimmicks or something cool or crazy. I can't say what specifically, but I do think they should go with the original ideas, but expand upon them. Like multiple Devil Trigger abilities where it had like different abilities based on the weapons you had, or imagine doing like quadruple S combos with the Devil Trigger. That'd be cool. Or like jump canceling with like the lightning strikes from it. Hell, I'd love to see Gun Trick Sword happen in this game. Like, I can't imagine just Dante doing Gun Trick Sword while you're beating the shit out of Phantom. Like, that'd be peak, dude. I also think improving the combat could help against certain bosses and enemies. Speaking of which, some of these need to be fixed too. That nightmare boss fight is yeah, I don't even want to bring that shit up. Another thing I think I'd like to add is I'd prefer the dynamic camera to either be like 4 or just have the camera be similar to 5 where you can move it around. The camera isn't egregious in DMC1. I mean, there are some times where it will screw you over, but it definitely is an outdated style of gameplay and all that, I personally feel. But honestly, I'm spitballing for the combat because there's so many cool ideas they can work with from the original, and they can make them even cooler in the modern engine. Like, there's limitless possibilities with what they could do, which is what Devil May Cry, in my opinion, has been about since the third game, where it always encouraged limitless ideas and new possibilities and combos and crazy shit that you could do based off of your personal creativity and what weapons appeal the most to you, which I think is, you know, really good, and DMC1 Remake definitely does need that. Now then, for the story. I'd like to say that I think the story of Devil May Cry 1 is actually really good, even being like the first of the franchise and being a 2001 game. Not that older games didn't have good stories, but it's a timeless story in my opinion. Sure, the dialogue might be a little outdated,
Block off, Featherface, or you can stick around and find out the hard way.
but it's a story with heart and soul to it, which is ironically what the game is about. And I think having that in a modern era would be good because it'll show new fans what the roots of DMC were, how it all started gameplay wise, what the heart of Devil May Cry is. A story about what makes you human. And Trish showed us for the first time in history that devils never cry, you know? She was a human, even though she was, a demon. But that was cool. Sure, Dante was proof of it too, but seeing Trish go from this heartless demon who served Mundus without question, being selfless enough to help Dante, despite the fact that he literally told her off because he was like, he's like, yo, bruh, it might look like my mom, but you ain't got that spirit that she got. But she changed because of Dante and because of who he was as a person. And that's another thing DMC had always been good at, just showing that Dante changed others because of his actions of him being a good person. It happened with Lucia, it happened with Lady, and hell, it even happened with Virgil when he was V and Urizen. V reevaluated his relationship with Dante and understood him more, and Urizen learned that there was more to strength than just demonic power. Everyone always brings up Lady, and don't get me wrong, I love Lady the most. She's the best DMC gal in my opinion. But put some respect on the original Devil May Cry Lady, like the original one. And I think with the help of a modern engine and more creative ideas, the story could be evolved a little bit more too. I mean, hell, look at Resident Evil 4, where they added in a whole new scene, a new villain origin story that helped, like, enhance Leon's story a bit, and even change how Leon felt about Ada, which definitely gave that relationship a bit more depth and personality. They added new ideas to existing ones by elaborating and spicing up the original ones. They could do this with the DMC1 remake, but easily having things like Dante speaking more, us learning about Mundus more, as like a character and a villain, more scenes and fights with Nello Angelo. There's so much to explore, and there's, again, limitless possibilities. There's a lot they could do expansion-wise to make the story richer and give both old and new fans a new experience. Hell, Capcom plans to do that with the new Veronica remake by adding new stuff to give old and new fans a completely unique experience while still staying true to the core fundamentals of the original game and ideas. Which is honestly what they could do for a DMC1 remake, and that'd be pretty good and healthy, I'd say, for both the franchise and the fans, both old and new. One more thing that I'd like to add is to obviously give the game more content. Give us cool stuff like more difficulty, some quality of life adjustments. Give us Bloody Palace in the Void. I'd also like to see some costumes come back. Like, dude, Requiem just dropped 8 costumes with the game on launch, by the way. 2 available for free in the game once you beat the story, and the other 6 are just paid DLC that doesn't even cost that much. I mean, $14.99 for like 6 different outfits, and then on top of that, like an additional like $2.99 for a DLC costume that was, like a pre-order type of thing. But now they made it like, dude, there's so much stuff they could give us. Give us cool fits like Dante without the coat or DMC3 Dante, something more than just a damn recolor. And look, I'm not saying, yo, if you like the recolors, you're fucking stupid. But like, I personally just want more than a recolor, you feel? Also, I think they should give us other playable characters. Am I asking too much? Yeah, I am, but I don't give a fuck. Make Trish and Nello Angelo playable, please. Like, can you imagine hacking your way through demons while playing as Nello Angelo? That'd be peak. Or hell, blasting and zapping through demons as Trish. That'd be fun as hell, and Trish could have a more refined moveset that would make her unique and interesting. There is so much room for potential, dog. It's genuinely insane to me. Like, if they actually let this go, it's like, damn it, dude, y'all could have had something fucking generational, bro. So, let's say they actually make a DMC1 remake, and even half of what I said comes true. That'd be pretty dope. I'd love for the game to be like the ideas I presented, or, honestly, more ideas that people could present. Or Capcom could just crush my hopes and dreams by never dropping a DMC1 remake. Now, if they drop 6, that's a different topic, because I wouldn't mind Devil May Cry 6. But, like, no DMC games is like a bruh moment. But I doubt it. I doubt they disappoint the fans like that, considering the fact that they said they do plan to bring some more of their old franchises into the spotlight, some ones that are lesser known than what they're currently printing out, like Street Fighter and Resident Evil. But I feel like DMC1 Remake is the way to go. I think that is a new way to introduce people to Devil May Cry again, introduce people to the where it all started, the original source, all that. And it's tough for like the legacy OG fans to come back and be like, hey, man, this is a remade version of the game that I played when I was younger, or just people who just really like DMC1 seeing it in a modern engine. It's new content, new stuff, and it's putting DMC1 back into the spotlight since I feel Devil May Cry conversations usually just boil down to DMC3, DMC5, the Netflix anime, or reboot bad. Nothing really goes outside of that. And I think one should be relevant again. It should be an easy gateway into the franchise for new fans. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Should they do DMC1 remake or should they do something new? Maybe a 2 remake, 3 remake, maybe even a 4? Ultimately, it's up to Capcom, but we can dream and schizo post until they give us new content to feast on. Anyways, like, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, your boyfriend, girlfriend, and your dog. Maybe you should also share this with the skinwalker outside your house. Let that guy in, by the way. He's a really big fan of Devil May Cry. Anyways, thanks for watching, and God bless, my friends.